Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Tom Stewart here. I'm with Alvin Gehring and Troy Knight, and we are with the MaidCentral team. But we want to talk about something a little more generic, a little more general that affects anybody in the house cleaning industry. That is, how do we process our payments within our businesses? When I say payments, for the most part, what we're talking about here is credit card processing, and how do we do that in a way that creates the most value for our business? And to kind of frame this up, I'm going to jump right in. Alvin, Troy, is that okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
We're on a roll here. It's been a busy day here, and kind of feel like we're just getting started. But the whole gist of where we're going to go here for the next little bit is to talk about the benefit that can be realized by managing the way that you get paid by your customers. And I can go back like 30 years in this industry. And, 30 years ago, we were primarily getting paid by checks and sometimes cash. And that was often time consuming. It was risky. There were times when you'd lose a check or can't figure out where the money went. You'd leave the check. Troy, you remember that? You'd find out that the check was in somebody's pants and it got washed.
Yeah, they come in with just a crumbled up wad of paper, or we even had one time where another client, they called us and told us that they had found a check in their yard where the technician, I guess, was taking something out, and they dropped a check and actually left it in another client's yard. So all kind of stories, right?
Falls out in the car and gets stuck, between the seats, and you find it 3 years later. Back in that time, most companies were seeing their technicians at least once a day, if not twice a day. And, we were printing out pieces of paper with the work instructions and everything else. And at the end of the day, when the teams would come back to the office, they would hand the checks and the cash in. Fast forward to 2025, that doesn't work very well. Most of us process most of our payments now in the house cleaning side through credit cards. The traditional way of doing that is paying about 2.9%, 3%, something like that, plus an additional fee, 30 cents per transaction. So, you do the math on that. You're typically over 3% for credit card processing. It used to be a manual process. I don't know if you remember this, Troy, but there was a time when you would punch in credit card numbers into like a little machine, because we didn't have the physical credit cards, and kind of run them one at a time. Do you ever have to do that?
I never had to do that. Never did that. We were still taking a lot of checks and having to run the check through the machine in the office and all of that. But
no, not the
processing's come a long way.
And I don't know if PCI compliance was a thing back then or not. I imagine it was, but of course you had like a document with your customers' names and their credit card number on it, just kind of laying around your office. I guess the statute of limitation has run out on that, so I can say that now. Nobody does that today, though. That kind of brings us to smart payments. There's a better way of doing payments. Doing it electronically, doing it, you don't want to be handling paper anymore, but you can do it in an automated way, and you can do it in an automated way where you aren't paying nearly as much fees as what the standard convention is, and that's what smart payments is about.
And smart payments is really more than just credit card fees. We talked about those credit card fees a moment ago, but really smart payments is a way where that fee can be transferred from the company actually to the customer. And we refer to that as surcharges, or passing that credit card fee along where that fee's added to their invoice as well. And we'll talk a little bit later about just how important it is to make sure that surcharge, that credit card fee is documented properly and is on that invoice. So smart payments is an automated way of doing that, and not just automated, but a way of doing that so that we're compliant. We know though that everyone doesn't want to use a credit card. Some people may say, I don't want a fee, I don't want to pay a fee. There's other options, and I think one of the things that makes smart payments work is because we're really not forcing anything. We are giving our clients options, and one of those options is to use ACH. ACH has a much lower fee. If they use ACH, it's that bank-to-bank transfer. So it's not like they have to go in and initiate a manual check every time or do that through their bank. It's a frictionless payment method. They can avoid those surcharges by paying ACH. And it also lowers that cost to the business, to the company. You mentioned how those credit cards are 3%. ACH is going to be a much lower percentage as well. So just another way of giving them some options. When we talk about smart payments, we're talking about setting it up properly, setting it up in a way that is compliant. We make sure of that. And those surcharges get automatically applied at the time of payment. There's no additional steps. There's no manual steps required. So all of that sounds good. How do you actually do it at the end? We're going to share with you a payments guide on just how you can implement that. It's going to have a letter that you can send to your customers, letting them know what you're going to be doing as far as passing those credit card fees, why you're doing that. We're going to include some answers to questions you may get, some objections that they may have, how you can answer those, how you can help explain the reasoning why. And doing that, we found that there's very, very little pushback, because nowadays credit card fees, these additional fees, with the evolution of using credit cards, these fees being passed on is just a part of doing business nowadays. It's not unusual.
So what we're going to be sharing here is like an entire playbook to process your payments in a way where you're creating more value for your customers, and you're going to be doing it in a way where it's going to be putting a lot more money to your bottom line. Could you walk us through, Alvin, some of the details?
Yeah, so with all the data that we gather, we're seeing that, kind of bottom line, a lot of cleaning businesses these days are losing upwards of 10, 20% of their profit just straight to credit card fees. And through implementing smart payments, there's kind of a lot of boxes that it's going to check as you go through where, yeah, it's going to be automated. It's going to be fair. We want to make it transparent to our clientele. As Troy was saying, we want to give them options. We don't want to just force the credit card fee on them and say, this is your only option. We give them ACH options and multiple other options. Smart payments, we want to make it easy. We also want to maintain that professionality to it. Those templates, call handling, call objection, that's kind of where the guide is going to come in. The big thing I want to focus on here is compliance. We're really going to dive into the compliance of credit card fees. We see a lot of people doing it through maybe add-ons or different means where you're not actually compliant with like Visa, credit card, or maybe not compliant with your state or your state laws in general there as well. So we definitely want to cover that. And the big thing, of course, the bottom two here, we want to make it scaling. So the bigger you get, the easier it is for you, and it can just kind of flow really naturally. And then obviously not only bottom of our chart there, but bottom line profit is going to be a big part of what you see here. And you'll see that there's thousands and thousands of dollars that are just straight profit for almost no work that are just sitting there waiting for you.
So the bottom line is you just can't decide to start charging everybody 3% more, calling it a credit card processing fee, and fully stay compliant and legal. You can get yourself in trouble if you're not doing it the proper way.
Exactly. So as we were saying earlier, many companies are paying upwards of 3%. The standard rate we see across, just all platforms from the credit card processing side is that 2.9 plus 30 cents each transaction. We've rounded that up to 3%. Sometimes it gets higher. I definitely know companies in the 3.2, 3.3 range. And by eliminating this processing fee and, giving better options and cheaper options like ACH or passing on that surcharging to the customers, we're seeing in the 10 to 20% up range of profit margin increase, where if you're a company doing $500,000 in credit card each year, there's $10,000 or more dollars sitting there waiting for you to just grab that. And it's all bottom line. You're not having to book more jobs. You're not having to hire more employees, train more employees. You're not having to change office staff or do any of those things. They're just waiting for you. And you can really see that in the graph here, Tom, if you just hit.
What you're saying is if I got $1 million a year company generating $1 million in revenue, 10% profit, that's like $100,000 in profit. That could go to like 110 or 120,000, doing nothing different other than switching over to smart payments.
Correct. And it's about $10,000. We're seeing about $11,000 per $500,000 of revenue. So what you're looking at here is this is $500,000 of total revenue that you've processed through credit cards. That 3% of 500,000 is $15,000. If you can get that down to 1% or even lower, we're seeing around 0.5 to 0.9% when we're in smart payments. That's instead of $15,000 of credit card processing fees, you're down in the $4,200, $5,000 range. There's your $10,000 of extra profit just sitting there waiting for you to kind of, dig out.
Yeah, we work too hard in the house cleaning business to just leave that type of money on the table. Troy, could you tell us a little bit about firsthand experience and what we've seen in Castle Keepers?
Sure. All of this sounds great. When you're looking at the slides and we're talking about how payments have evolved over time and all the money that can be saved. But what I'd like to share is what our actual experience was in Castle Keepers. We implemented the credit card fee, the surcharge. We implemented smart payments about 5-6 months ago, I guess it is now. One of the first questions or fears that a lot of business owners have, I believe, when you start talking about implementing smart payments, passing these credit card fees on to the clients is, oh, wow, I'm going to lose a lot of customers. They're not going to do it. They're going to find someone else. What we found was in our Greenville location and our Charleston location, 0 customers left because of implementing credit card fees being passed on to them. No one left. And I think part of that was because we did give them options. Again, remember, they had the ability to use ACH payments if they chose. They could stay with credit cards. 93 to 91% of our transactions are credit cards. We moved 7 to 9% in the locations to ACH. So even though we're passing these fees on, we still had over 90% of our clients stay on credit cards, take the credit card fee, no real questions asked. What we did find, though, was the ones that were looking to move to ACH that had questions about the credit card fee, wanted to find ways that they could not pay that, or some of our older clients, maybe some that were retired, maybe on a fixed income. They were the ones that elected to go to ACH. And like I said, over 90% in both locations stayed using credit card fees. So after implementing smart payments, Castle Keepers in Charleston found that our average fee that we were paying was 0.86%, where in Greenville it was 0.96. So if you think back about that graphic Alvin had on the previous slide, we were able to go from around 3% to just under 1% in both locations. So saving, 2.2 to 2.1% is a lot of money, when you apply that across all of the revenue you generate in a year. So again, no customers lost. We gave them options. We had answers when they had questions, and we had an alternate means of payment so they could not pay that fee if they chose. And tremendous.
And we've talked to other companies, other MaidCentral partners who have implemented smart payments. And I mean, it may have happened. Somebody may have lost a customer over this, but I've had more than one, outside of Castle Keepers, tell me that they were able to do the implementation and didn't lose anyone. I wouldn't go into this with the expectation that somebody might not balk at it, but and I think in 2025, most people have become accustomed to paying a surcharge, so it really isn't a shock to anybody now, which kind of leaves the door open. If you're running credit cards and you as a company are the one that are paying the credit card processing fees, you're becoming the exception rather than the rule. You do not want to be paying the credit card processing fees in 2025.
I think that's another good point you bring up, Tom, about you may lose some customers, right? There may be some that are just looking for a reason to leave. You never know. But what we have seen is at the end of the day, when you're able to implement smart payments, you're able to be more profitable.
Yeah.
And I think that's why
even if you lose a couple of customers, you'll be making more money, and you're cleaning up, leaving a slot to fill in with a higher paying customer who's glad to adopt smart payments.
Exactly right. So, and that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to maximize that profit, and this is a smart way to do that.
So getting into compliance, compliance is going to be really, really big, and we definitely want to bring up the importance of compliance and why it's important to implement smart payments in the correct way. Because as you see at the top, there's some states that will just not allow you to do it. Maine, Connecticut, Massachusetts are going to be those top three. We have partners who want to implement this but can't do it to their state. So before you do an add-on or you implement smart payments, it's important that you make sure that you're in compliance. We don't want anyone getting in trouble, and I know you guys don't want to get in trouble with yourselves and doing this. It's really a nice offer. So there's also some other extenuating circumstances where you can't apply a credit card surcharge to debit cards. Something like this Tom was talking about, it's becoming commonplace. My wife and I went out to dinner, and I pay with debit card now because I know they can't give me a credit card surcharging when I pay with my debit card now. So we've stopped paying with the credit card, so we just want to make sure we're compliant there. And then some states and certain credit card companies as well have caps on how much you can charge, where the typical cap we see is you can only charge the amount that they charge you. You can't say, oh, well, I'm going to charge a 3.5% credit card surcharging fee when the credit card company itself is charging you at 2.9%, as an example. The biggest part of compliance is how these fees are being shown and how visible they are on the invoice and displayed online when you're quoting or giving receipts and all of those things. So we're going to have an example in the next slide of what that needs to look like, where you need to make sure you have a memo that explains that you're having a credit surcharge fee. And then you'll see it's not a line item where we have the residential cleaning and then the tips are line items. But if you look at the bottom right near the green paid, there is a CC surcharge line on the bottom. That's where it needs to be on the invoice in order to be compliant with those credit card companies as well. So we went ahead and blew that up for you. If there, you can, kind of get dinged, so to speak, by your processor if you're not doing these things the right way. So the biggest thing here is add-ons. We've seen prior to smart payments, companies adding this through add-ons, and there can be some larger issues with that when we're talking about how we're billing, when rate increase time comes, and you do a rate increase, that credit card surcharge, if it's not being added on, then you're only charging 2.5%, and then you're, lowering those profit margins as well. And again, the biggest thing I just want to stress here is compliance. The credit card companies don't like it. Your state may not like it. And then overall, just adding more friction between you and your clientele base, which I know nobody wants to do. So you're not going to want to be doing this through add-ons. If you are already doing it through add-ons, I would definitely, make sure that you're doing it in a compliant way.
So to do it the right way, and do it the way that's going to keep you out of trouble, and create the best experience for your customers, you want to do it within the framework of a defined process, and that's what smart payments is. You want to walk us through what tokens are, Troy?
Yeah. So whenever you get ready to actually implement smart payments, many credit card processing companies, many processors do not have an option to automate this. They don't have an option to implement smart payments that is completely compliant. Within MaidCentral, we have a way of doing that. We're able to take those tokens or those credit cards from the other processor. We're able to bring those in. And in doing that, that's referred to as a token transfer. And that process is simply just moving those credit cards from one processor to another. It's good.
So
that
you
we can
mean
do that.
you don't have to go out and get credit cards from all your customers again?
You don't have to go out and get credit cards. You don't have to call the customer and tell them what you're doing. You're able just to transfer those credit cards or tokens into MaidCentral. This process, however, does require a fee. It varies by processor, but one thing that we're doing to help our current partners implement smart payments is we're covering up to $250 of that transfer fee for the month of October.
And rarely the fee is even 250. That would cover the entire fee in most cases.
In most cases, it can vary. If the fee is $150, we'll cover that $150. If it's $250, we'll cover up to $250. Just to make it a little easier and help with that transition process. So that's one thing we're offering to our current partners to help them this month in October.
Very good.
But how do we do that? We do have a smart payments guide that we talked about. If you go to maidcentral.com/smart-payments-guide, there's a smart payments guide there that has a letter that you can use, that you can send to your customers. There's also a guide that we have with questions that you can anticipate being asked, and just what those answers to those questions are. So that as you implement this, you send the letter out, you let them know that you're moving in this direction. You'll be better equipped to give them an answer and make them comfortable and understand what's happening. There's profit there. It's there for us if you go this route. If you have any questions, you can always email Alvin at maidcentral.com. You can email me, Troy, at maidcentral.com. We'll be happy to talk with you about the process. I'll talk to you about how we did that within Castle Keepers. If you're not a MaidCentral partner, but you want to learn more about this, you think this is a way that you could improve the profitability of your company and want to learn more about MaidCentral and smart payments, you can always go to maidcentral.com/demo1 and you'll schedule a call with me or Alvin. We'll be able to answer those questions and help you unlock some profitability going forward.
Hey, Roxanne, good to see you. I dropped the links to both the download for the smart payments guide, basically the playbook for how to do this, as well as the link to our website if anybody would like. If you're not a MaidCentral partner and want to book a demo, we'd love to talk to you about this and MaidCentral as a whole. So that pretty much sums up what we're doing with smart payments. The overarching gist of this whole thing is that it's really hard to, build a profitable company in the house cleaning vertical. It's really hard to build a profitable company, period. But for a lot of reasons, housekeeping, residential cleaning poses a lot of challenges. And, if you can increase your bottom line profit by 10, 15, maybe 20% without really having to burn any more calories, do any more work, this is the easiest. I've been cleaning homes for 30 years, and this is the easiest additional money you're ever going to make. And it's just be a shame to leave this on the table, regardless of, how you are running your business now, what software you're using or anything else. I just want everybody to be thinking about, if you're paying your own credit card processing fees, you want to get out of that business. You don't want to be doing that in 2025. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to call this a wrap. Alvin, Troy, y'all have anything else? Nope.
I think the biggest thing is just don't let fear stop you from making some more money.
That's the bottom line. Take action.
Yeah.
Alvin.
If
Troy?
anyone has any questions, please reach out. I'm happy to help anyone answer compliance issues, implementation issues, all of those things. So definitely don't be afraid to reach out.
Thank you. Awesome. Appreciate the kind thoughts, folks. We're going to go ahead. We're going to call it a wrap. Alvin, Troy, thank you. We'll be back again soon. Till then, everybody take care. Bye-bye.
Have a great day.